everyone. Welcome to our AFC preview show. It's Ashmere here, new season. We had a new intro, which I was obviously vibing to because I wasn't even prepared to come back on camera. I am happy to welcome in Jalen, Greg, Jeff, myself, and talk about these two teams, two divisions in the AFC. First of all, how is everyone? It has been a long summer since we've all talked.
I'm doing very well.
I'm doing great.
I'm busy as always. This is business as usual.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we know. One day a book will come out about you, Jeff.
Oh, yeah? Well, let me know. I can buy all of them because they probably won't sell to me.
He'll tell us about your life's journey because we all need to do that. We need to understand it one day. Okay, if anyone watched the NFC shows, we already saw Greg and Jeff there. How was that? How do you guys think that went?
I thought it was great. We got some nice banter with Thomas going with the East and West shows. We had some great analysis from our unseen faces. We don't get to see a lot of our Chicago and Minnesota writers a lot. So we had them on all shows. So and Greg got to jump on for that as well. So it was a good mix. I must admit it was a nice change of pace from night one to night two.
The NFC South division has changed drastically, however, because of the additions that the Falcons made. But okay, that's fine. And Thomas and Mark both need to read my article about the Dallas Cowboys going 11-6 this season. They will win the division for the first time since 2004. And I'm sorry, Thomas and Mark, but ESPN is even saying the Eagles are going down this year. It's a beautiful thing for me.
Oh no, if Thomas is watching, he's sitting there like this, the major shaking of his head.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's kick things off with our teams that we're going to talk about in the AFC. We're going to start things off with the AFC North. And first of all, we know this is one of the most aggressive divisions in the NFL. They've got 3 of their defenses are in the top 10, I believe. So, I mean, I think that is enough. Whether the offenses do well or not, I think just the defenses will pull through for them. And I want to start off with the Browns and hear your thoughts about Deshaun Watson. This is really his time to show up and show out and prove that he was worth that big bag of cash that he got. So, Jalen, I'm going to start with you. What are your expectations from Deshaun Watson this season?
I'll even start before Deshaun Watson. First off, this Browns team has the roster to compete and go to war with pretty much anybody in the NFL. Deshaun Watson is might quite literally make the only thing on this roster that's holding the Browns back. He's only played 12 games in 2 years and has had an average QBR of 41 in those 2 years. First off, he needs to stay healthy. And secondly, he needs to finally be the quarterback that we knew him from when he was in Houston. So that's as simple as it is. And if he doesn't, well, the Browns really need to start considering new options, because in 2025 he'll have a cap hit of just under $64 million, and in dead cap it'll be about $137 million. I mean, even if he doesn't turn out to look good, I mean, we know that this Browns team can win with, a variety of options at quarterback, but he got to show me. I mean, they brought in Jerry Jeudy, they got weapons, they got a great offensive line. He just needs to put it together.
Jeff.
Well, this has been the case of Murphy's Law when it comes to Deshaun Watson, right? They make the big trade, they get him, the suspension happens. Well, that takes away year one of that contract virtually, right? So turn around, year two is supposed to be the big year in that last year. It was supposed to come back, struggles early, finally starts to look like he's going to turn the corner, and then the injury happens. So 2 years of this contract are now officially gone. You have 2 more. He's not going anywhere for 2 years. So we know for the next 2 years, this is Deshaun Watson's team. It's fully guaranteed, so they can't eat the money. So they have to pretty much stay the course. However, they were smart enough, at least, if there's another injury, they go out there and get another quality quarterback that can come out there and play in Jameis Winston. So at least they gave themselves a good insurance policy. Joe Flacco happened to work out for them late in the season last year when they started having all the injury issues behind Watson. This time around, they said, well, Jameis Winston we know can still play. He's still a quality quarterback. He's going to come in here and not make waves in the locker room. He's going to be supportive. And they were smart to do that. They reassured themselves with Watson. And if he comes out and comes back to the form that we saw in Houston, which is kind of hard, he hasn't played a full season in 3 years, because if you count the last year in Houston, he didn't play at all. So there are 3 years of a guy not playing a full season. That's hard for a quarterback in a West Coast style system to come out and just grasp it like that. It's something that it takes a while for a quarterback to grasp that system as it is, but you have to be in it full time to actually do it. So I think he's philosophy-wise got it, but now he has to go out there and execute it against the defenses he's seeing week after week. That's something he has to do on the field.
All right, Greg, I don't know if you want to close out, but I do have a different question if you want to talk about something else.
Give me a different question.
All right. I feel like we touched enough about Watson. So defensively, the Browns could be one of the top teams, top number one maybe. And I'm wondering, how do you think that helps this team, having that knowledge going into the season, just to fully come together and be a good Browns team that can compete, as Jalen had said earlier?
Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. Greg Newsome is an awesome corner. JOK is a very good linebacker. But again, the Cleveland Browns always have the same problem at the end of seasons. They take too many penalties. Mm-hmm. Until they stop hurting themselves, this team will always be a team that can be a greater team than what they actually show. Their penalties are ridiculous, and I don't really see it changing under Stefanski, because he's never disciplined his guys for taking these penalties either.
Okay. Does anyone have a follow-up for that?
I just wanted to add that cornerback room is also one of the best in the league. It's not just Greg Newsome, it's Denzel Ward and Mark Anderson as well. So yeah, I definitely agree. They need to be much more disciplined as a football team.
All right, where are you ranking the Browns in this division?
I mean, if they had a great quarterback, you could argue 1 or 2, but it just has to be 3. Like I said before, this roster can go to war with anyone in the NFL. The only thing that are really holding them back is the quarterback. So it's got to be 3.
All right, losing Nick Chubb last year was also a big thing for the Browns. I don't know if you guys saw this video. I'm going to play the clip of him squatting. I think it's like 590.
Let's go. Deep breath. Don't get too comfortable. Up fast. Don't let it go slow. Don't let it go slow. Don't let it go slow. Let's go. Come on. Come on. More speed. Finish.
When I saw that, I was like, this man was not injured. Like, it was like a little dip in his story of success, because that's a huge amount of weight to come back from after a huge injury like that. So Jeff, I see you nodding your head. I want to hear your comment on that. You think Chubb is coming back, equal to how he was, or what does that look like for him?
Well, listen, he's always been a freak athlete, so that video doesn't shock me. The main thing is we haven't seen him run and cut and do all that stuff yet. That's the big stuff right there. The hard part about knee injuries like that, any kind of joint injury, I mean, when I've come back from it, it took me 6 months just to come back from a high ankle sprain, a severe high ankle sprain. Right? So you're talking about tearing your ACL and MCL and having to get all that surgically repaired. All the lateral movements that come along with that stuff, you have to be able to trust that knee and do the things you were doing. Part of it is mental, part of it is physical. I think physically he's come along just fine. The next part is mental. Am I going to be able to pop right up after the next guy gives me that shot on the knee? Because guess what? People hit him low all the time. He's going to get hit knee on the knee quite often. The one time he gets caught straight leg, and he feels a little twinge, Is he going to worry about the knee and start to run tentatively? There's a mental side of it as well to rehabbing an injury that you have to get past. I think once he gets past that point, once he trusts that he can run the way he used to run, watch out, Lee, because Nick Chubb will be back.
I mean, Jerome Ford was pretty solid to back him up. So I feel like the Browns really have the key pieces to do what they need to do. It's all about how Deshaun is week one, like Absolutely. We've all repeatedly said. We all agree on the same thing. All right, let's roll into the Bengals. Mr. Joe Burrow came back, blonder. He came back ready for the new season because, as we all know, he has had a lot of injuries, and he has not had the opportunity to really participate in the preseason with his team. So, first impression thoughts of the Bengals, of Joe Burrow's hair. Greg, do you love the blonde or what?
Do I talk about hair at any given time? I don't talk about anybody's hairstyles, their color. I don't do it. I'm sorry. I just don't.
All right, Jalen, do you like it?
So yeah.
I'm gonna look past that hairstyle that he got. I'm gonna pretend I don't see that. So I'm gonna focus more so on his preseason game. How he's been in the preseason. First thing, I like that he is, partaking in a normal preseason this time around. It's just like every year, it's just, my goodness, it's always something. But he played in a preseason game. He's been going through all the different practices. I mean, I know that they've been giving him at least one rest day a week. Right, for me, all the Bengals should be worried about with Joe is protecting Joe. And when it comes to starting the regular season, they just need to start fast. Start fast. Don't wait till October to want to start playing football. No. Let's week one, Patriots, start off right there.
All right, Jeff. Did you like the hair?
Come on, listen. We haven't had a blonde hotshot quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Boomer Esiason, man. Come on, you got to give him a little love for going Boomer Esiason this year, right? Going out there with the blonde. It looks a little more Eminem than Boomer, but nevertheless, listen. He wanted to change up the look. He wanted to change it up. Maybe it gives him a little more stability as far as staying on the field this year. We don't know. Listen, I whatever he wants to dye his hair blue, as long as he plays the same, I don't think Cincinnati's going to. He can be Dennis Rodman with 50 patches in his hair.
I can tell that.
As long as he's throwing the ball for 3,500, 4,000 yards a year, I think Cincinnati is just fine.
Do you mean just fine? I think everybody has the same objective here in the AFC, is to come for the Chiefs, and so. Are the Bengals still that team they were a couple years ago that have that opportunity? Does it look like that right now? Okay, explain why. Everybody's shaking their heads. Jeff, you can go first.
Well, they've undergone changes, right? They're still trying to fix the O-line. There's no more Joe Mixon, that guy that was a dual threat problem in the backfield. So they're trying to do that with a little bit of a committee approach in the backfield. They still have those receivers. But once again, you got to be able to protect your quarterback. They went and got some veteran guys on the outside. They got some young guys to come out there and help with that offensive line. But most importantly, that defense as well. Some of the same defensive bodies on that front. The linebacking core is a little changed. And guess what? So is that secondary. So once they get that mix and that swagger back, they'll be a tough team for Kansas City. But I think this Kansas City team is a different animal from the team that they beat a couple of years ago.
All right, Greg, you're up next.
I agree with what Jeff said. I mean, getting Amarius Mims in this draft, he has only played the 8 college games and all that jazz. But as I said, draft night, the guy is a phenomenal athlete. But where's he playing? He's not starting, right? They got to hope that Derek Brown at 38 years old can remain healthy. That's a question mark. And again, without Joe Mixon in that backfield, Chase Brown is an excellent running back, but he's not Joe Mixon. And I really feel that Cincinnati has to get off to a really hot start.
Yeah, I think losing Mixon is probably the biggest challenge that they need to overcome. So how can the Bengals really hone in on the rest of their offense? I mean, obviously, we know they have Jamar Chase, but there's only so much, or he could do everything, right? But I'm curious to hear, Jalen. What's your thoughts?
I'm kind of in agreement with the rest of the people. It will definitely take some time to get a lot of those new faces on the same page on both offense and defense. But I know, like, as far as Jamar Chase, the pass catchers, it won't be just Jamar Chase. They did bring, they got T. Higgins, who will most likely be his last year. They did bring in Jermaine Burton in the third round. They also drafted 2 receivers last year, Yoshi Voss and Charlie Jones. We could see a slew of guys in that third, fourth receiver spots on the offense. And we could also see a lot more tight end sets as well since they brought in Mike Gesicki. You can see that in the red zone. But yeah, the running game for me is still a bit of a question mark with the loss of Joe Mixon, and they bring in Zach Moss and Chase Brown. So yeah, I really gotta just wait and see how that part will look once the regular season gets going.
I think they come out with a good start. I mean, they take on the Patriots, and then following that, they get exactly who we're talking about, the Chiefs. So it gives them one game to figure out offensively how they can come across another strong defense in the league that obviously Super Bowl champions, and just, I feel like that's a great way to start the season, is taking on the champs, because then you can build for the remainder of the season, keep Joe, on the field, fix that offensive line with all those things that you guys all covered, and roll out from there.
I do feel that they're like the beginning of their season is a bit more favorable than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
Like last year, they just start facing their division rivals immediately, and yeah, that definitely hurt them. Like last year, and when they only went 1-5 in the division. So I like that they have a little bit more time this year to get all on track before they play Cleveland or Baltimore or Pittsburgh, because none of those games are going to be easy, obviously.
Well, since you led into it, let's just hit Baltimore right on. So, talking about schedules, I'm going to show their schedule just for our knowledge to understand the Ravens. They were top of the AFC last year, lost to the Chiefs, had a phenomenal time. I mean, it was like one of the most exciting teams to watch. Lamar Jackson, of course, is a magical person on that football field. And they take on the Chiefs week 1. I feel like it's like rubbing salt in an old wound, personally, because but that's how you become better. So entering week 1, what are you doing as a Baltimore Ravens coaching staff? How do you prepare for this, Greg?
Well, the Ravens basically prepare the same way every year. They just get whoever they get in this draft, and they never have to deal anybody. They got Nate Wiggins, who's an excellent DB for them. They got Adiza Isaac as well out of Penn State, who is just a phenomenal linebacker. And then they just get Devontae Walker, and they just continue to just draft so well. But they also grabbed Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry, I don't care if anybody, when I was talking about Saquon Barkley being at that age, that was the experts' talk. That's all I was saying about Saquon. But Derrick Henry is going to be a difference maker for the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson is just who he is, right? He's got to stay healthy like everybody else. And these Ravens are just going to be a very tough team to beat.
I like that you brought up Saquon, because that was going to be my follow-up question. Who do you all believe is in the better situation here, Saquon or Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry, absolutely.
Henry.
And it's just based off of what this offense can do, or what's your reasoning?
For me, the reasoning is you're talking about an offense that's already built on a running game in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yep.
A coordinator that's been there a couple of seasons now, as opposed to a brand new coordinator in Philadelphia that's coming in and now putting a whole offense together about a bunch of pieces he didn't have last year. You're only adding a brand new running back that upgrades your running game in Baltimore. Derrick Henry comes in. It's a stable fit. It's a line that can block and give him what he needs. It's a dual threat quarterback that opens up a lot of options for him. It's a tight end and a wide receiver on the outside. They give defenses problems that they're going to have to focus on. He's going to be able to do a lot more out of spread fronts than he saw in the past in Tennessee. That's going to help him a lot more in Baltimore.
All right, Greg.
I completely agree with what Jeff said.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry is in the much better position. The offensive line that he's going to be playing behind is just so sound. They are just so sound. Everybody talks about the Eagles and their tush push and all that nonsense. But if I want an offensive line that can just play straight up football for 60 minutes, I'll take the Ravens. I'll just take them because they just go out there and do what they need to do.
Yeah, it's true.
Of all the teams that Henry would have went to, this was the last team I wanted him to go to.
Of course.
Because I just knew how perfect of a fit that it was. And yeah, it's gonna be a tough game to face him whoever plays him week in, week out.
How do you imagine Henry's going to fit into this offense? I feel like he is such a strong player on his own that he could have been placed anywhere and be successful. But here he's looking to win now, which is it's a very close thing for the Ravens to do. This team was right there last year. So curious to hear how they're going to utilize Henry and how this is going to help the Ravens this entire season. I feel like it's a long game.
Well, the Ravens are just going to pound that football, and they don't care whether they have to go outside or inside. They don't care. They will just pound you to death with the running game. And Derrick Henry can go inside like nobody's business. And even he still has enough juice to go out to the outside as well, although I think they'll use Ali more for the outside runs.
Okay.
I think we don't talk about Baltimore Ravens offensive line enough. When you're talking about one of the biggest offensive lines in the league, 6'6" tackles, 6'8" right guard, 6'6" left guard. The smallest guy is the 6'2" center, right? There's a lot of beef, a lot of athleticism on that offensive line. Daniel Falele, he's 6'8", yes, but he was a tackle, okay? He's a converted tackle. So that is a lot of athleticism and mass on that offensive line. They're going to be able to move people around with that big back behind them. I've never seen it where he can hide behind the offensive line before. This may be the first time you see Derrick Henry actually hiding behind blocks.
Yeah.
So if you guys had to rate this Henry joining the Ravens, would you say it's pretty good, you're indifferent about the decision, or you think it's a spectacular choice that the Ravens did this?
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. You really can't. It's hard to get better than this.
That hits spectacular for me. I mean, it was just the absolute perfect fit.
It's an excellent move. It fits their identity. He's a guy that's going to thrive in that offense as long as he stays healthy. I don't think it's the best upgrade they can make, not being a playmaking wide receiver.
Yeah.
On the defensive side, the Ravens lost some good guys. Their coach, PQ, a lot of changes defensively to a team that was to a defense that was very good last year. Mm-hmm. And this year, they're just going to have to figure things out. Like, that's the mantra of our show, I guess, is how are all these teams going to figure it out. For the Ravens, would you guys consider them still a top 10 defense? And if you do, break it down.
Yeah, this is a top 5 defense in the league. Patrick Queen is not the be all and end all of linebackers. I'm sorry. He was surrounded by guys who did their jobs.
Yeah, Patrick Queen was made better because of that Mike McDonald system that was brought in, and in which hypothetically there may be a little bit drop off, but still the defense may not look that much different. Their new defensive coordinator has been with Baltimore for many years. So, yeah, and on top of that, Nate Wiggins is already joining a very great and well-rounded secondary that even with the loss of Geno Stone. So, yeah, I wouldn't be worried about the Ravens defense at all.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this defense. Listen, yes, they lost some pieces, but they're losing veteran players because they're drafting so well. Okay. Yes, you have Owe at outside backer. You have Kyle Van Noy coming over. We have David Ajabo coming off the bench for these guys in that rotation. We talked about Nate Wiggins, one of my top corners on the draft board, comes in here and fits right into what they're doing. Having an amazing preseason. Going to come out there. He's going to play in packages, and by the time he's ready, he's going to start for this defense. Yep. They've done a great job of drafting. The Ravens always do. They know the kind of guys they like. They find value on the board no matter where. They bring in quality free agents. They continue to do that with this defense. I think the biggest question will be situational. The scheme won't change. It's a matter of when you always have a new coordinator, different coordinators call different situational things differently. So it's a matter of if he learns to manage the situation as well as some of his predecessors, I don't think you're going to see a major fall off in this defense. You'll probably see an improvement with the younger players coming on. So I think that's going to be the main thing is how they handle situations. Are they able to get teams off the field on third down? Are they able to manage and get stops in the red zone? Those are things where you look at the coordinator and say, how is he calling this defense? What is he doing that offense they have a game plan for and predict?
Yeah.
It sounds like everyone's all in on Baltimore. So let's just close out with the favorite team of America, the Pittsburgh Steelers, because we don't know what's happening. I know. This is my riff. We have no idea who's going to start at quarterback. First question. Who would you rather have, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields?
Fields. It's simple. If they had an offensive line, Justin Fields would be a fine quarterback in this league. Russell Wilson cannot move the ball downfield. He cannot escape the pass rushes anymore. Russell Wilson should be gone from the NFL. I'm sorry. He should be gone. Justin Fields should be the starting quarterback for these Steelers. And again, if they had a better offensive line, this team would be fine. But they're not. And the other side of the equation is TJ Watt and those boys up front are getting older. They're slowing down.
All right, everybody, give me your answer.
I'm going to go with Fields as well. And the reason being is, like he mentioned, you're talking about an older player in Russell Wilson. When you're a mobile quarterback, when Father Time starts to catch up with you, you're not able to evade and do the things that made you special anymore. He's going to become more of a manager. If that's the case, go with the younger guy who's going to give you a little more juice, the guy with more upside. That's going to be Justin Fields. The main thing is you got to get this running game healthy to help them out. Right now, they're struggling with injuries in the backfield. They're struggling with injuries on the offensive line. Falatano has already missed time here in the preseason. So that's the main thing with Pittsburgh. You got to get this offense healthy in a hurry because you may need to run Justin Fields out there week one.
Yeah, I agree. Justin Fields should be – they should at least, give him the start. But, the offense still as a whole needs a lot of work. Outside of George Pickens, is there really a viable number 2 pass catcher? I mean, can Roman Wilson be that guy, or what do you really have out of Van Jefferson or their tight end Darnell Washington? They need another pass catcher to step up beside George Pickens. The defense, still solid. The TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith duo is still one of the best in the league. But, with the Steelers, the offense is still where it falls short, which has been the case for a while. It was the case last year. And they still found a way to go 10-7 with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitchell Trubisky. But, when you go from Matt Canada to Arthur Smith, that's pretty much a lateral move. So when you look at the AFC North, the Steelers are really the odd ones out.
The one thing I'll say about the Arthur Smith move is this may be the better fit for him offensively, right? We talked about him in Atlanta being pretty vanilla with the personnel he had. He had a lot of X factors that he could have done a lot of things with that he didn't do. With this offense, other than we talk about Pickens being on the outside, being their main guy, the only guy you're really afraid of. Well, what you have are 2 very good tight ends. And he's a guy that can utilize the 2 tight end sets very well. You work the play action game off of it. So the main thing is if they get healthy in the backfield and find ways to get the ball moving on the ground, especially out of that 12 personnel, we talk about Fry move from Washington, those 2 tight ends out there, those guys can create space in the middle of the field for you utilizing play action passing. So that may be the best thing to happen for Arthur Smith is this gets go back to what he was able to do in Tennessee with those tight ends he had at the time when he was there, to go back to that ground it out, utilize those tight ends and occasional wide receivers on the outside. That may be the best thing for Pittsburgh with Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator.
But it's going to be Justin Fields who's going to have to carry that football behind those two running back tight ends. I mean,
yeah.
And that's always the risk, right? Because if you've got to run that quarterback gets hit, and he's going to get hit hard, especially in the AFC North.
Yeah, it's tough out there. I was going to say, we can't forget Pat Freiermuth, so I'm glad that you said that, Jeff, because last year he did pretty well. I think the back half of the season, he really stood his ground. He stood up to the position. He took those blocks. Like, he was way different than the first half of the season. I think that's because he realized he needed to be a true tight end in this situation because they needed that. So let's get your rankings for the AFC North before we take a quick break. I think I need to know who everybody's ranking 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, Jeff, take me through your rankings.
For me, it's going to be it's going to be the battle of Ohio for second. I'm going to take Baltimore for the division. It's real tight, but I'm going to take Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. Nobody's going to have a losing record.
Wow. Okay. That's good for the Steelers.
I disagree with the losing record.
Yeah, I was going to say that's crazy for the Steelers.
I think the Steelers actually missed the playoffs with a losing record this year. I have Baltimore first. I'm gonna have to disagree and take Cincinnati second, Cleveland third, because Deshaun Watson just doesn't thrill me. He never has.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go Cincinnati, Baltimore, and then Cleveland. As far as Pittsburgh, I am in agreement with Greg. This could possibly be the end of the Mike Tomlin era. But another thing that I want to bring out is that the past 3 years is between Baltimore and Cincinnati. The quarterback that stayed the healthiest, the longest, is pretty much the team that makes it out of this division. In 21 and 22, it was Burrow. And Lamar got hurt both those seasons. In 23, Burrow went down. Lamar stayed healthy and won. So really, whoever Burrow or Lamar, whoever stays healthy the longest, is gonna be the one that wins this division.
I'm gonna roll with the Ravens, of course, and then I'm thinking Bengals, Browns, Steelers. I'm with Greg and Jalen. Oh no, Jalen had Bengals as number 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, duh. If everyone didn't know, Jalen's a Bengals fan. In case you didn't know, you're new to Team NBS Media, I'm breaking the news for you. All right, we're going to take a quick break before we come back and talk about the AFC South, which if you watched anything from last season, you know that we are all CJ Stroud fans here. So stay tuned.
Huge CJ Stroud fans.
Oh, yeah.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build a cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the wild.
Welcome back, everyone, to the AFC North and South preview show. I am your host, Ashmere, with everybody. If you're just joining us, Jeff, Greg, and Jalen back again. That was the quickest break ever, but I just needed some water. I'm going to keep it real. So we talked about some fun things in the North, but now I think the South is the most exciting, in my opinion, of the AFC because there's so much competition. We've got the Houston Texans doing something that no one predicted last year. Can they maintain that momentum? Anthony Richardson's coming back from, missing the whole season basically. And then are the Jaguars worried about where they're going to land? And the Titans, I think, are just trying to win a couple games. That's all they're looking for. So let's start things off with the Titans. I'm going to make it harder. Does anyone here think Will Levis is that guy? And how do you maneuver through a season like this as a Titans fan? Because there's just a lot of change that needs to happen, and it can't happen in one season, right? So, Greg, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I think Will Levis is a fine quarterback, but he just needed weapons. DeAndre Hopkins is there now, and we know he's a little banged up at the moment and all that jazz. But the Titans did draft a very nice little receiver for them in Jaquan Jackson from Tulane. They just have to really just improve overall. And they did with their offensive line pick of J.C. Latham as well. I mean, that is a huge, huge man. The Titans are going to struggle. That's just the bottom line, though. They're going to struggle.
It's a kind way to put it, Greg. Jalen?
Well, I'm being nice because they're not like the Eagles or the Giants or the Commanders. I'm being nice to these teams.
They don't deserve all of your hate. I got it.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I think Will Levis can be the guy. I mean, I still need to see a lot more from him, obviously. And I want to see how he looks for a full season. It's great that he has Hopkins, but it's unfortunate that he's getting hurt. So, they got to see what all they have from their other guys that they brought in, like, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley. Can their former first-round pick, Traylon Burks, do they have anything in him? We don't know. But, yeah, as you can see, you look at the receiver room, and the Titans are they're still paying for that A.J. Brown trade. So, really, it's a rebuilding team. They got a new coach, young quarterback. Titans fans to just keep the expectations low and just hope and pray for the best. There's a lot of holes all around. Yeah, it's gonna be a long season. That way.
All right, Jeff. Different question for you. Bringing in Tony Pollard to replace Derrick Henry when I think Tajay Spears was a very strong. Okay, Greg doesn't like the question, but I think he was pretty strong for them to be a backup in Henry's absence. So what do you do there with these two running backs?
Well, they're going to have to, kind of carry each other. All right. Where you had one main back and you bring in Spears to be a change of pace. These two guys are going to co-share the load, much like he did with Elliott when he was in Dallas. Tony Pollard will be the lead back now. Last year, you saw him splitting time with Rico Dowd. So guess what? You're going to see the same kind of thing there. They're going to use a backfield by committee. It's not going to be one running back toting the rock. They're going to use both of these guys, and they're going to have a younger back going along with these guys. So don't be alarmed if you see a third name pop and you go, oh, he's pretty good. They have some pretty quality backs here in Tennessee. They just don't have that one bell cow right now, and they don't really need it. I think they're trying to get away from that because eventually they are going to have to pay other players. So Jeffrey Simmons got rewarded. He's going to be up again soon. So they're going to be going back to filling in the other roster spots and other things. They're going to want to go in free agency and dabble in some higher price free agents next year. So they had to do the right thing. They had to let Derrick Henry move on. But with the backs that they have right now, it's going to be a committee backfield. Those guys are going to be splitting time. They're going to be trying to take the pressure off of each other. But that's a lot of speed, not a lot of power. So that's going to be the one thing you'll be looking for in Tennessee. If they don't have it this year, they'll find it next year, either in the draft or free agents.
Well, I don't think there's any power that can replace having Derrick Henry on your team. That's
no.
That's asking for something grand out here. Greg, why are you shaking your head? Tell me.
Tajay Spears will be the lead running back. Tony Pollard will be the lead receiving back. He's going to go back to what he did when he first got big in Dallas. Zeke was always the main guy, blah, blah, blah. But Tony Pollard out of that backfield was spectacular. That's what he's going to have to be in Tennessee because they don't know what they got in Hopkins and Treylon Burks and all that other receiving core. Tony Pollard can receive out of the backfield. That is going to be his calling card.
Is that why you're shaking your head?
Well, yeah, because I heard Jeff talking about it. No, he's not going to be the lead running back. He's never been the lead running back anywhere. He only had 46 carries.
It's not only going to be a lead back. He's going to be the guy. Yes, he does start. Yeah, exactly. He's going to get the early carry. But they're going to be splitting around the same amount of carries anyway. Yeah. They're going to be getting the same amount of catches. I think what we're going to see is a different style of offense in Tennessee where they're going to be a lot more wide open. It's going to be more about Will Levis throwing the ball, trying to get the ball down the field, getting the ball on the perimeter. So I think what they're going to do is they're trying to be a little more progressive, going down the field. They believe in Will Levis. They believe he's the guy. They're going to try and grow him as a quarterback. So I think that's what we're going to see in the change in Tennessee. Now, if that works for them early, that's what's going to propel them into a pursuit of this division. If it doesn't, they're still going to middle around the bottom of this division until they get more talent.
Yeah.
Well, this comment brings to light they do have 2 key receivers here. So does this not change the way that the offense can look, or is it still just a building moment, a building season for the Titans?
Once again, you have to. The questions are still around the quarterback, right? We say the same thing with the Giants. The questions are still about the quarterback. How does Will Levis grow this year in the next year, right? So we saw him have his ups and downs last year when he finally played. He showed you some of the promise. He showed you some of the questions that people had about him. What does he do this year? Now he's going to be asked to throw the ball a lot more than he did last year. There is no Derrick Henry to lean on with the running game. They're going to do a lot more with him as far as throwing the football, utilizing his legs as a runner as well. There are going to be times where they run read option because of the backs that they have, running that outside zone and things like that nature. Also, don't be surprised with the bootlegs and stuff like that when he's going to be asked to run if there's nothing open. So I think they're going to utilize those guys on the outside. They're going to get Ridley open and they're going to try and use Burks. Listen, I like Treylon Burks coming out of college. He's been a disappointment so far with injuries and just unproductive. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be the one thing that he needs this year. He said he's in the best shape he's been in. With those 2 receivers, this may be the best Treylon Burks they get. That will be the biggest thing to help them out if they want to get Will Levis going.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we could be a little optimistic for Titans fans. Not too bad. All right, let's roll into the other blue team, the Colts in Indy. Anthony Richardson last year, the 4 games we saw him in were fun. Like he was acting like a leading QB. He had a mistake here and there. Of course, he's a rookie. That's just going to happen. The key question here is how can Richardson stay healthy? What's the key for that?
I think he just needs to. Well, you go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Jalen.
Okay. He needs to continue to progress as a passer, number one. And also, we know how dangerous he is with his legs. He also needs to protect himself more as well. He needs staying healthy is the biggest thing for him this year. He's dealt with injuries before in college. He's dealt with injuries at almost every level for football. He needs to be able to protect himself more and more, even though how much of a factor he is with his legs.
Jeff.
Sorry, my Steeler fans are not happy with me putting them in 4th place. Sorry, Junior, I love you, brother, but just the analysis is how it goes. I think right now, the best way for him to stay healthy is for him to, one, throw the football on schedule. Right. When he holds the football and extends plays, he opens himself up to more hits and more injuries. So the main thing is to throw the ball on schedule. Get those quick throws out, go through your reads, throw those intermediate routes on time. If you can recognize the coverage on time, get it out, move fast, right? Sometimes you just got to run, break the pocket, get a couple of yards, and get out of bounds. I think that's the main thing is he's got to throw on schedule, get the ball out on time, make defenses cover, and then he can take advantage of his legs, breaking the bigger runs then. But if they're going to utilize him on a lot of zone read and boots, and he's got to run and do all that stuff to try and make things happen, that's where the injuries are going to come into play. I think the main thing is they have a quality offensive line. It was really good at one point. They're trying to get it back there. But the main thing is he's got to be able to go out there and consistently throw on schedule.
It feels like the talk of this show is really offensive lines and their success with their QBs. So, Greg,
did you not watch the number of offensive tackles taken in the last draft, Ashmere? The number of offensive tackles, it was massive.
Yes,
and that tells you that every single team has problems playing offensive tackles.
And let's not forget how many quarterbacks got hurt last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yep. And for Indianapolis, I wrote last year, and I was wrong about Anthony Richardson in those 4 games. I was wrong. I did not see the type of talent that man actually possessed after his short college career. And when he went down, I was devastated by that. But the Colts are a team that does have a good offensive line. Getting Gonzalez in this draft was a steal for them in the 3rd round. They really got themselves a very good tackle. Then they also added to that wide receiver room with A.D. Mitchell as well. I mean, if you've got a high RAS score, Chris Ballard is drafting you. That's the bottom line. And Michael Pittman is still going to be the number 1 guy there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as long as Anthony Richardson, I think, finds his receivers, as Jeff said, they're going to be a better team than they were last year.
Defensively, where would you rank the Colts?
I'm going to say middle of the pack. I still think they have some more changes to make with the secondary. There's still some improvement to be made there. Consistent pass rush. They're starting to get better, but there's not a consistent 4-man rush, so they have to sell out a little too often. I think once they get settled on the front end and the back end, I think you can be solid at linebacker if you have a really good front and a really good secondary, because then your linebackers get to play around those 2 features. So if you can do that, because you can't spend money on the whole defense, right? So if you can do that, they'll be better. Right now, they're pretty solid on the defensive line, especially on the inside. Pass rush on the outside is hit or miss at times. In the secondary, they have a couple of players you can build around, but there's still some question marks back there. Once they improve those 2 areas, I think this defense will take a top 10 turn.
Well, they did draft Latu.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
later on, they grabbed 2 very good safeties.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to their linebackers to me, because that DB room is pretty solid and deep. But
we just haven't had the production out of it yet. That's the question about this. Will they ever get to the production that we see? There's a lot of guys we projected that they're going to do great. They just haven't lived up to it. They drafted a guy a couple of years ago who's not even there anymore, Rock Yassin, who was one of my favorite corners in that class. I think that overall, when you look at this defense, listen, Latu's going to give him a great edge presence, but he's still a rookie. So they don't crown him in the Hall of Fame yet, right? But he's going to get there eventually. So I think that's going to be a big improvement for that pass rush. I don't think it's going to make him terrifying just yet.
And as I said during the draft show, Latu is a pass rusher only. He's another Micah Parsons. He has no clue how to stop the running game whatsoever. No idea. So guess what teams are going to attack? They're going to attack Latu on the running game.
Mm-hmm. Well, they made slow adjustments. That's why I was wondering how you guys would rank this defense, because they did make those adjustments in the draft. All right, rolling into the Jacksonville Jaguars, who used to be the top contenders of this division, if you wanted to call it that. And now we are entering the worrisome time. I want to know, if you are Trevor Lawrence, a Jaguars fan, are you worried about how this season is going to unfold for you based off of how the Texans were amazing last year? Jalen?
Well, if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I mean, I Well, I would be a little worried, but I can't be too worried because I already got paid. But you know, but yeah, I would still be worried as far as where the Jags rank in the division. You were the number one guy coming out. It's year 4, and you still haven't looked like that guy that everyone has expected you to be. And the division let another rookie come in, take all the shine, and it could be looking even more exciting this year. So yeah, I would start to get a little worried, but they do have the opportunity to close the gap this season.
Greg, are you worried as a Jaguars fan?
What? I've never been a Jaguars fan. They belong in London. That's where they belong. I don't like that. I don't see that guy with the long hair quarterback. I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. But Calvin Ridley is gone, and they did bring in Brian Thomas, who I don't care, kids. Brian Thomas is just as good as Malik Neighbors was, okay? And he gets off the ball better than Malik Neighbors does. So they did get a very good receiver in round 1. They still have, to me, their biggest issue is their offensive line, like every other team out there. And if Trevor Lawrence doesn't stay healthy, that team's done. That team is done.
Yeah, it's true. I think he's the only thing holding this entire team together.
Yep.
Jeff, close it out.
They're really Italian with the hair.
I mean, I feel like with the hair that he's serving,
Well, I will agree. Listen, Trevor Lawrence has to stay healthy for this team to win this division. I think it's going to be that's going to be the fight. Houston and Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the only reason they didn't win the division last year was because Trevor Lawrence got hurt, right? They fell apart at the end of the season. So I think as long as he can stay healthy for 17 games, this is going to be the battle of these two teams for the division. I think Houston, once again, has stepped up a notch. They had a great run at it last year. I think they're going to continue to play at a high level. I think Jacksonville, as long as they're healthy, listen, we're finally seeing the emergence of Travis Etienne, one of my favorite running backs in his draft class. He was one of my top running backs on the board. They're finally utilizing him in and out of the backfield, utilizing him a lot more as the RB1, not just splitting time in the backfield. Listen, they lost Ridley. That was a tough loss for them, but they made up for it with other receivers. They brought in a veteran receiver, Gabe Davis from Buffalo. So they added speed to the outside, so they're giving Trevor Lawrence the ability to stretch the field. I think they'll be just fine in the passing game. The main thing is, can they run the ball to keep defenses off their multi-million-dollar quarterback? That is the question.
Yep.
Christian Kirk deserves his flowers, okay? That man ranked 12th in wide receivers. I don't know why this Calvin Ridley thing is such a big deal. I think they'll be fine because Christian Kirk kind of saved the day for Trevor Lawrence. He was always there downfield when he needs to get the ball out of his hands. He's in a tough situation. I think this offense is stronger than we think, and that you're all true, right? It really depends on Lawrence staying healthy. And then flipping the script here, defensively, where do you rank the Jaguars here? What is kind of their Achilles heel for this team?
They're another middle of the pack defense. They're just like the Colts, as far as I'm concerned. They did take a pretty good corner in Jerrion Jones from FSU, but then they decided to go with those two DTs from LSU. I'm not a big fan of the Bayou Bengals and their defensive line players, so we'll see what happens with that. But to me, they're just a middle of the pack defense.
Yeah, their biggest Achilles heel on this defense is that they're a smaller, fast defense, right? They play with a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, which means that you can overwhelm them with power. And that's one of the things they've struggled with in the past. Teams that have been able to run the football down the middle of this defense and negate that speed have been able to match them point for point on the scoreboard or manage the game to keep that offense off the field. So that has got to be the one thing this year is they got to get better at slowing down teams running games, not getting overwhelmed up front. Yes, they have some solid size inside, but the linebackers aren't huge, right? So the ends aren't huge with Josh Allen. He's more of a speed and power guy on the outside. So you talk about this defense is very fast, very athletic, not overly big and strong. And if they can hold up against the teams they're going to face, and that'll be the one thing that allows them to take this division away from Houston. But Houston's a very physical team, so that's going to be one of the biggest battles for them.
Their safety room doesn't impress me either in Jacksonville either. So
getting back to somebody said Christian Kirk's not a number one. You don't need him to be a number one. Christian Kirk is your lightning in a bottle guy. He's the guy you throw it to underneath, and he runs after the catch. He doesn't have to be a number one. He just has to be the guy that eats people up in space, and that's what he does very well. And that's what opens up the outside for those other receivers. When he got hurt last year, that's what started the injury train for Lawrence, because then he didn't have that guy to do all of that.
Yep. And Brian Thomas is now the YR1 for the Jaguars.
You hear that, fantasy people? Brian Thomas.
Who will have a better rookie season than Natives does with Daniel Jones.
Do we have a fantasy show scheduled? We all have to do that.
We need one. That will be coming to Sunday mornings.
That's right.
Yeah, to our show, yes. Okay, we're obviously waiting to talk about our favorite team in the NFL. At least it's mine, because as a Raider fan, you need a new team. CJ Stroud, Houston Texans, phenomenal, outstanding. There's only positive words to use for him and that team. How do you level up from what they were able to accomplish last year?
Well, Stephon Diggs is now going to be the slot receiver. Stephon Diggs is going to destroy teams as a slot receiver. And now you've got Tank Dell and Nico Collins still running on the outside. Their quarterback is going to have a field day with Stephon Diggs being the slot receiver. And this is the team that I don't care what anybody says. This is the one team that I think can take on Kansas City and beat them in Kansas City or in Houston. It doesn't matter. The Houston Texans are loaded. They are loaded.
I love it.
Go ahead, Jalen. I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to pose a question because, I love, I'm loving CJ Stroud. I already see him as a tier 1 quarterback in the NFL. It's just, is anyone afraid of a sophomore slump at all?
No.
I think they've done enough to kind of help him with that, right? We've seen the upgrade at the wide receiver position. So even if he does lose Tank Dell again, he has enough help on the outside to continue to go strong. I think what he has at the tight end position is solid enough. Anthony Blanket and Dalton Schultz. I think the main thing is, did they upgrade the running game enough? So that's the big question for them, offensive line-wise. Are they able to protect him? Because they did get him beat up late in the season last year as well. He had some injury issues. So I think that's the main thing now. Can he stay healthy? Like most quarterbacks, that's always the biggest question. Can they stay healthy for 17 games? But I don't think he's going to have a slump. But I like the way that they're doing things in Houston, continuing to build around him the way that with things that he's going to need to improve. You got him another surefire receiver in Diggs. That's something that you needed, and it takes a lot of weight off of not just him, but off of Tank Dell. Because you think about Tank Dell was the dude last year, and when they lost him, it changed a lot of things. That's 2 severe weapons teams are going to have to worry about, and both of those guys can play in the slot, or you can motion them outside and create matchup problems with both of them. So I think what you're looking at right there is a recipe for an even better season for him. The main thing is, are they going to be able to run the football enough? Because there's certain situations where you had leads last year and he had to fight them off with his arm. You want to be able to run the clock out at times with a 4-minute drill, and they weren't able to do that last year.
But they did add Lamar Jordan from Louisville in this draft.
Yeah.
That is a very good running back to put into that backfield. You also added Cade Stover at tight end, who can now bring you a 12 personnel. CJ Stroud has got more weapons than you can shake a stick at. They also added Blake Fisher from Notre Dame on their offensive line, who was their right tackle, but he's played left tackle because what's his name? Tunsil has been injured. So you've got all kinds of weapons there. And they even added more to that defense with Kalen Bullock, Kamari Lassiter, Jamal Hill from Oregon. This team has just been phenomenal at the draft in the last 2 seasons. Just phenomenal.
Speaking of defense, that pass rushes. Yeah, speaking of defense, that pass rush is looking extremely dangerous. You already had Will Anderson, who won Defensive Rookie of the Year. And then on top of that, not only do you add in Danico Autry, who had 11 and a half sacks last year with Tennessee, you also brought in Daniel Hunter from the Vikings, who had 16 and a half sacks as well. That defense, that pass rush is going to be crazy.
Jalen, do you believe in this sophomore slump? Because you proposed the question.
I don't more so from Stroud. I guess I was just worried, overthinking.
It's too good to be true. The Texans cannot do what they did last year and become even better.
I mean, well, when you heard Greg say that he already believes Stroud can go toe to toe with Mahomes.
I'm with Greg on that. Anyone that can knock the Chiefs off of that Chief Kingdom, I'm with it. Okay.
There's only a handful of quarterbacks that can do it. I gotta see it for myself first.
Yeah, but the Texans have that solid defense to also attack Mahomes with. That is the reason why I say the Texans can beat the Chiefs in KC, or especially at home under the dome. They can play with the Chiefs.
I smell that hate in your blood, Ashmere. Oh man, that Raider hate for the Chiefs is strong in you.
It's so deep.
Yeah, listen, defensively, they're a very talented team. We talked about the additions that they made. That secondary alone, you talk about the drafting of Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie. There's talent all over that secondary, which is why they made such a fast jump last year. I think overall, we talk about them in Jacksonville. I think that's the big thing right there. They have the ability to go into Jacksonville and slow down that offense with what they have. They can match up defensively. I don't know if Jacksonville can match up with them. So that's going to be the big matchup when it comes to these two offenses. Which one matches up against whose defense? I like their offense versus Jacksonville's defense a lot more than I like Jacksonville's offense versus theirs.
Yep.
I mean, I would be worried if I had to play the Texans twice. Like, that's just something that I would not be looking forward to because of how stacked they are. Just how many – adding Stephon Diggs was like putting more sprinkles on your ice cream cone. Like, you just didn't have to do it, but you did it because it made it that much better. So, yeah, I compared Stephon Diggs to sprinkles because I think they're going to just sprinkle him in, and Tank Dell was really superior. Nico Collins. This whole team just, like, awoken with CJ Stroud, and I don't believe in that sophomore slump because of how close they had gotten to being that top AFC team. I think once you have seen that you are capable of doing something like that in your first year with these guys who you just met, like, what's holding you back, right? Like, sky is the limit at that point. So this is probably my favorite team to watch, and we can close out with our rankings. And if we all say the Texans, I think it's a granted thing. Jalen, give me your rankings.
Yeah, it's Texans 1 easy, and 2's Jacksonville, 3 Indianapolis, and 4, Tennessee.
It's okay. You're not alone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they split the season series between Jacksonville and Houston. I think Houston does win a division. I think Jacksonville will lose somewhere else in the division, maybe a Tennessee game, because they always seem to lose to the Titans no matter how good or bad Tennessee is.
It's true.
So I think that's going to be the one difference in the division. It's going to be that one loss for Jacksonville. So I'm going to say Houston, Jacksonville, followed by Indianapolis, and of course Tennessee. And I don't think Tennessee will be as bad as they were last year. I do think they're going to be an improved team, and I still think it's improved as the top 3.
All right, Greg, your rankings.
The Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, the Jaguars, and then the Titans.
I'm piggybacking off of you. I think the Colts are going to surprise us.
This is what you should have learned from me last year with the Sunday show, because I was the guy that kept winning.
Yeah, it's true.
See, just listen to me. We'll be fine.
We'll bring up the scoreboard for NFL Week 1 because Joe, Jeff, and I were just like, we were nowhere near success.
Well, I had a winning percentage. There was always a game that tripped my whole thing up, but for the most part, I had a winning percentage.
And I was always picking the Raiders because it's wrong to not pick your own team. I think that's.
Oh no, you got to pick against your team.
Oh no, I picked against the Cowboys, and I was right picking against them, except against Arizona. Nobody had that. Nobody had that game, and it's just no.
Yeah, you're right. You're really right. All right, everyone. This has been fun. We're gonna do this again on Thursday, not with the same squad, right? None of you are here.
No, none of us are going to appear for your Raiders.
For my division.
Nobody, no.
It's okay. That one nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah, I already know who's winning.
That's okay. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you dropped us your rankings, we're going to share them. Be sure to tune in to the Moving the Chains show when we kick it off. And also Thursday, same time, same place, we'll be talking about the AFC East and the AFC West. And I'm just going to rant about the Raiders for who knows how long at that time. Be sure to subscribe. I know. Don't ruin it for me. This is what we're going to be talking about. This really fun division, okay? Be sure to like and subscribe everything Team NBS Media. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And everyone have a great evening. Thanks again for tuning in.